I do have a question before I get into what I want to talk about. And also, if you have questions, I want them as well. I was thinking over the weekend, I was flipping through the TV there, and I saw a documentary, part of the documentary about the civil rights movement and how they used to go. One thing that they did was they would go to white restaurants, and they would do sit-ins. Remember that? They would do sit-ins at white restaurants or white establishments. And I remember thinking this when I was a teenager, because we used to do sit-ins as well. And I remember thinking, how come, now I could be wrong about this. I'm not saying it was wrong. I'm just saying I was thinking, all right? So I'm up for correction on this. And, but when they would go and sit in white restaurants, like do sit-ins, and I've never really understood why they did that. And I saw it again this weekend. It reminded me that they had done that. And I still don't quite understand why they did sit-ins in white cafes. Who understands it? You understand it?
Is that even in the department stores, you couldn't shop and eat at the restaurants or the cafeterias or any of that. And if you did, you walked up to one side and purchased what you need and taken it with you. Oh,
so that's why they protest, they went and did sit-ins at the white restaurant?
Yes, mostly white.
You think they should have done that?
Yeah.
You do?
Yes.
You think so too, Francisco?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Let's take Ernest. That's all you gotta say, yes, sir. Oh, stop right here first with the young lady.
I thought it was just simply to show their hatred.
To show the black people that hated white folk?
No, to show the white
people that they hated black people. Oh, okay. That's why they did sit-ins for white cafes?
Yeah.
You think they should have done that?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes, Hermes.
Well, I think you already answered why they did it.
Oh, so is that why they did it?
Yeah.
You agree with what they said?
The right to be served at those establishments, because pretty much all the restaurants and the cities were owned by whites. I mean, the laws were against blacks, so you
think
go somewhere you want to go, huh?
You think they should have done that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. And everybody on this side agree too, they should have done it?
Yes.
All the white people agree? Yes. Y'all scared not to agree? Yes. No. Now, here's my opinion about that. And correct me if I'm wrong. I'm like, oh, Lord. I don't think they should have done that. I would, because a restaurant is not a government-sponsored program, right? Most of the time, you build it on your own, with your own money and all that. Am I right about that? No. Normally, government don't give you money to build a restaurant, normally, right?
True.
Is that true?
True.
Okay. And so if white people built their own restaurants, why would you force yourself in there and then they're doing the cooking, they're doing the feeding, won't they spit in your food and all that kind of stuff? I'm just thinking out loud here. Is that true or not? To me, if somebody build a business, and it's not a government business where my tax dollars are helping to sponsor it, and they don't want me to come in and take my money, I don't want to go in there. And I'm not going, it's like going to somebody's house and not welcome there. And to me, that never made sense, that they would force themselves to go into a white restaurant and make these people serve them, not knowing what's going to happen in the back there in the kitchen, And I don't think they have, now you could correct me out there too, audience, if I'm wrong, they didn't have a right to do that, I don't think. Where I grew up, and I grew up on a plantation, all right, on the real deal. Some of the guys have gone down there and seen it. They had black restaurants. I remember when we would go to town, there was a black cafe right in the middle of town. And we would go shopping, and then we'd go down to the black cafe, have lunch, and just have some fun. They had a little jukebox in there. We would dance on Saturday while the parents were shopping. And then where I lived, out on the plantation, there were black restaurants out there. They had some of the best fried chicken. And I remember, I can smell it now. And so I never would go in and protest a white cafe because I didn't trust that they would treat my food right. And my grandmother always said, if you're not welcome, don't go to nobody's house. And if they don't welcome you there, then don't go. And that's how I grew up thinking about that. And I was thinking, I never understood why they did that. But I'm glad you guys cleared me up. You thought it was the right thing. Yes, Richard?
Yeah, in some of the, like I said, department stores, clothing stores and whatever, they had cafeterias as well. And if you spend your money buying items in the department area, and they had a cafeteria area, and you wanted to get something to eat there or like the way it smelled, you couldn't do it, like I said, unless you went to the side.
But so you didn't have to. You don't have to shop there, though.
Yeah, we had, just like you were saying, you stated earlier, that we had black restaurants as well.
Yeah. But so what do you think about my point in that in the restaurants where there were no clothing stores, they went in there and just forced these people to feed them? What do you think about that? Well, in
part, I think you're correct.
Am I wrong what I'm saying here?
In part, I think you're correct. In part, I think you're not.
Why not in part?
In the white restaurants, I agree with you in part. Okay, but in the department stores where they did have restaurants or cafeterias or soda bars, you could sit and drink and spend your money also in the department store. That's one item that I think you might be incorrect. That's why they protested Woodward, if I'm not mistaken, W.L. Woodward.
Right.
And some
so
of
they
the
have
Sears.
A little cafe in there.
Yes. Okay. I agree with that part.
But how about this?
I never thought about it.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, also it was time for change. Don't know who started it, but it was time.
But you can't force somebody to feed you in their own cafe. They're gonna spit in your food, put all kind of stuff in it.
It wasn't wasn't only the food places, and they picked the big ones because those are they can get the most.
No, they did the little cafes too.
But they picked the big ones like Woolworth.
No, but they did regular restaurants.
Yes. But they got more publicity with the big ones.
Oh, okay.
Right? And they also did on buses. My own father was almost carted off to jail because he came into this country and he sat.
Well, my only thing is the bus is a different situation because that's a city-sponsored thing.
It was a
so my tax dollars are paying for that anyway. I'm only talking about the location where my tax dollars didn't come out to sponsor, to help. If I'm paying for it, then I have a right to be a part of it. But if I'm not paying for it, I don't have a right to be a part of something else that somebody else built. And so that's all I'm talking about.
It was a big picture. The whole civil rights era was a big picture, and it included all those items for change to make
and plus,
equality.
We were better cooks anyway.
That's true.
We were better cooks. They hired us to cook. I'm gonna tell you, dang, I didn't know it could go this long. I'm gonna take this side, then I come. We'll wind it up on this one. Let me take Ernest first, and then I come to you.
I was gonna say though, because the laws were against them, and they weren't able to establish their businesses where they wanted to.
But that's not true, though.
That is true.
No,
a black business person couldn't just build a restaurant where he wanted to. They had to build their businesses on their side of town. So
what's wrong with that?
What's that?
What's wrong with that?
Okay, what if you're not?
Okay, that's a different story. You can change the laws. They should have changed the laws where we could freely go to any part of the land. So I'm not talking about that either. I'm only talking about the private restaurants that white people built with their own dough, with their own hands. Why did they force those people to change their rules? Because if we didn't go in there and then the business right next door allowed us to come in, that business is going to make buku money. And then, believe me, this business next door is going to change too automatically if they want money. Because people in business to make money. And if they didn't, fine with it to me.
I'm going to let the Cox deal with you, Wayne Aranda.
Yeah, I was trying to wait for them to get here because I know they're little protesters. Yes, Sonia.
I was going to ask, were whites allowed in black restaurants?
Yeah.
So?
Because they wanted to make white money too.
So it needs to go both ways.
But you can't force it, though. Not in a private business.
Could you discriminate against whites?
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't have to let them in.
Probably would have started an issue, though.
That, right.
Things were being structured the way they were.
Hold on for the mic, I'm sorry.
During that time, it was okay to discriminate against blacks, but if blacks tried to discriminate against whites, it might have caused an issue.
You know what I realized from this conversation? I've already realized it before, but I'm reminded now. Things were not the way y'all think they were. It wasn't what you've been told. Yes, there was some discrimination going on. Yes, you know, and especially in the cities. It was more so in the cities than it was, I guess, in my area. But it wasn't as bad. It wasn't the way you guys think that it was.
What do you mean it wasn't what we thought? Can you elaborate on that?
It sounded like black people couldn't do anything. You know, like it sounded like the white world was so big that it hindered us. And that's not true.
No, blacks didn't have as much freedom to do as much as whites. A white person could go in the black community and start a business, but vice versa, that wasn't the case.
But in some areas it was the case, because in Hurstboro,
some, but not all.
Where I grew up at, it was a white town. Downtown was white, and there was white businesses there. I mean, black businesses there.
Well, that's a small area,
Yeah.
small example, though, of a much larger problem.
But it wasn't as bad as you guys think.
Well, it's kind of hard to accept that premise when you say it wasn't as bad as you think, when people are walking down the street and you see all this footage of people having dogs sicked on them and fire hoses sprayed on them. That looked pretty bad to me.
Right, that was because they were having a protest.
Right.
If you go out there right now and protest, unless you occupy Wall Street or somebody, they're going to put the dogs on you.
No, we're allowed to protest just so long.
Now, I'm not saying it was all good. I want to move on, because I only wanted to make the point about a private business, a restaurant started by these folks. Why did they impose on them? I'm not talking, we getting all into all this other stuff, and I understand that the laws needed to change so that we can live in certain areas, move about freely, and especially if we were paying tax dollars for it. That's not the issue at all with me. You understand that?
Yeah, to a degree, yeah.
To a degree.
Yeah.
Why not the whole degree?
Because I think that you're looking at a situation and you're not looking at the larger picture.
Do you think if you start a restaurant,
yes,
and you only want to cater to black people, you use your money, your hard work, your everything, do you think anybody has a right to make you change that?
I think people have the right to protest it.
But that ain't what I asked, man. Do you think anyone has a right to make you change your rules with your business?
Well, we have laws. I mean, I can open a business, but I still have to operate within certain parameters.
That's not what I asked. Do you think, personally, that someone has a right to tell you what to do with your own private business? Who you should serve? Should
the
they force
government already
you?
does. I mean, to a degree. It depends on to what degree it is. I mean, I can't start a business and have total and complete freedom. There's got to be some parameters where that's not, that a person can't do because it's not healthy.
I'm going to ask one more time. And then, do you, and I'm not trying to get you to agree.
No, that's fine. I have no problem. Man.
Do you personally think that you started a business, you start your own business, you save your pennies, you work hard, you work overtime, it's now up and running, you got no money from the government, and you only want to cater to black people? Do anyone has a right to tell you you have to cater to somebody else?
I don't know if I can. I have to think about that one, because I think that's very narrow, a narrow scope. It's some things that there are some gray areas in some issues like this, and it's just not that.
There are no gray areas in life.
I don't know.
Only black and white.
I don't agree.
It's either right or wrong. It's either good or evil. There are no gray areas at all.
Well, you have to convince me of that.
Where are the gray areas?
Well, when you are looking at the situation when you're talking about civil rights and stuff like that.
But I'm only talking about one thing, one aspect of the civil rights movement. Only one aspect.
Okay. You're talking about one aspect, but it kind of, there's a larger society and a bigger picture that's going on. So I think the way you're framing the argument is you're dealing with one tiny aspect of a situation when the situation is a lot larger than that one tiny aspect.
That's what he said too. Okay, I could be wrong. I just always wondered about that. All right. So you're saying, yes, they should have forced those white people to change their mind with their own private restaurant.
I think it was a good thing, yeah.
Okay, what do you say, Ed?
You know, it's funny, I hadn't really thought about this until you brought it up. And I've been hearing everybody. I'm most struck by the comments you just made, where I'm a black, I want to open a restaurant. The answer was not clear, or at least, no, the answer was clear, that he would more than likely say whites cannot come in, but blacks can come into a white-owned restaurant. There was a kind of an interesting back and forth. Right now, it seems one-sided on his part, which is just the mirror image of the other one. So, and in each case, you got the concept of private property, and you go from that to being told that your property's not private, to being told that you don't get to own it, to being told that it's taken away from you. Those are not big steps once you make that judgment.
Very good point.
And I'm very concerned today in society in general, privacy. In fact, you know, it's funny. I lived in Europe. I lived in Italy. There is no such word as privacy in the Italian language.
Well, it's faded here too.
Well, the notion, when they want to use the notion of privacy in the way we do, social, political, et cetera, private property, they use the English word. There is no Italian word. So the concept that we have is in Anglo-Saxon law, you know, is very unique. And the communist countries, for example, private conversations were not allowed. Any conversation between two people was owned by the state in Stalinist Russia. So you could be told what to do with your property at any time, and your property went all the way down to the words you used and the air you breathed. So I hadn't really thought of that, and then you start saying you got to defend private property. Now, I happen to know people who lost their businesses because they were rioted against, because they were destroyed in race riots. There was an example of a white man that owned a grocery store in a black neighborhood. One-man shop. He did his own butchering, he did his own stocking. I mean, it's a little deal. It was taken away by violence. So I hadn't really considered it till you brought that up. I would have said like they did, almost knee-jerk reaction, well, sure. It was a protest era. It was the 60s. It was LBJ. It was a great society. And this is okay. And Medgar Evers and blah, blah, blah. Well, those are all mixed up together. And in the cities, in the government, it's one thing. The private property.
One thing I realize about life, and I'm growing into this, I'm not all the way there yet, is that we were created to be individuals first, to be able to think and know the truth for yourself first, so that you won't get caught up with the crowd and go that way, because just because the crowd is doing it doesn't necessarily make it right. And if you're not like a free thinker, you'll get caught up with things and thoughts that it just absolutely makes no sense at all, and you're enslaving yourself. And you won't be of any good to the world because everybody's thinking alike and doing the same thing. And I see this over and over again. I'm overcoming it too, believe me, because I can, if I don't stop for a moment, I'll find myself getting excited and caught up with the crowd as well. But 90% of the time, I almost said 99, but there are exceptions to the rule. 90% of the time, the crowd is wrong. The crowd is absolutely wrong. That's why one of the reasons God said that only a few people will find that straight and narrow path and just follow that path, where the majority of the people are going to be just one mind on their way straight to hell. And then if you are an individual who thinks for him or herself, you got to fight everybody on it. Because the crowd going to judge you for, can they go back into the school for the kids? Yeah. Yeah. They try to act like they're all bored. And then if you are an individual thinker, just get ready. You're going to have to fight the crowd. Because one thing about the crowd, they cannot handle looking to the right and seeing an individual stand there and not a part of them. They cannot handle that because I think it reminds them that they're wrong. There may be something wrong in what they're doing if everybody is not a part of it. And so they're going to come after you, whether it's in your family, your church, your school, your organization, your job, and anything. They cannot handle one person standing away from the crowd. So be ready for that fight. But stand on what you believe in. I'm telling you, when you wake up, you're going to see it's the way of life. You're just going to be attacked. Let me do this because I'm going to stop this conversation a few minutes here. Even if the Lord got us having this, we're going to. Oh, right here, this young lady. And there we go.
What was my point?
It's been so long, you forgot, huh?
Yeah. No, I think when you ask the specific question about private property, I agree with you.
Yeah.
But when you put it in the context of what went on during the civil rights, I think that it's a different set of circumstances. Because back then, I think that the law and regulation, it favored white people more than blacks or any other.
It did.
So it wasn't apples to apples. If you want to start a business, go ahead and that's your private property, and then you obtain your own black property if you're black. That just wouldn't be the same. So the retaliation.
Well, not necessarily true. In some cases, yes. But when I was growing up, I knew people who owned my best friend. I've known him from the first grade all the way through high school and college and everything. He went to college, I didn't. But they grew up like white folks. They had acres and acres of land, right? And they grew up what seemed to be wealthy. We would have to stop school for a while to work the plantation while he went to school. I have an aunt who married a guy. They got married. They bought acres and acres of land. They had a truckload of babies and sent them all to college. And we were growing up in the same era. So you can find that in some cases, but in some cases, black people owning land and doing their thing.
Right, but it wasn't a all or nothing. There was some, and let's say, I'm just throwing out numbers as an example, but let's say that on the black side, you had 2 out of 10 that owned property and were well off. But if you were white, you probably had 5 out of 10 because you had, right now you talk about SBA loans. Those are all things that have happened. Those are things to help you start a business. Back then, it was harder to start a business. So I think that you were retaliating against the laws themselves.
I think I know what happened now. I just realized something. I'm only talking about private business, a business you built with your own hand. And if you're foolish enough, and I don't even want to call it foolish, because if you decide I only want to serve this group of people, that's not necessarily foolish. That's what you want. And I have been thinking about that. Why did they force these people to do that? Now, what I realized from what you said, there was two things going on in the South. You had the NAACP and others getting people all upset and involved, where the elderly people didn't care about that kind of stuff. If somebody didn't want them in their cafe, they're like, I don't care. I don't want to be there if you don't want me there. And they'll do their own thing. Or they'll go to a restaurant where there was no problem in whatever color you were. Or they'll start their own businesses. They were not going to impose their will on anybody. But in the city, like Montgomery, where the city folks live, and most lived in the projects anyway, the NAACP and others was able to gather these people together and just start this whole thing. And the crowd gathered together, and they made it into what it became. But when you were an individual down there, I don't care if it was my aunt's house, my daddy's house. If they don't want you there, it was no big deal. and you didn't get mad at the people because they didn't want, they had a right to do it. So it was the so-called leadership that started that stuff, I think. Because the normal black people weren't thinking that way. They didn't impose themselves on anyone. And I had that same attitude right now. I'm like, okay, fine. You don't want me over there, fine. You don't want to be my friend, fine. I'm not mad. You have a right not to be my friend. You have a right to be free and do your thing, and I don't have a right to hold it against you. And we're losing that way of thinking, that idea now, because we're so used to making decisions based on what everybody else think about it instead of what we can see for ourselves and what we want. Anybody disagree with that point? Oh, good. I want a disagreeer, and then I'll come. Yes.
I think that if you are going to have a public business and you're going to do business in a city, you should serve everybody. I don't think you should have the right to say discriminate.
Even if it's your own money, your whole hard work.
I don't care whether it's your own money or not. If you want to participate and you're going to get licensed by the state of California.
You pay for that license.
Yeah, you pay for that license, and everybody else throws money in the till along with you paying for that license for you to be able to have your business.
No, nobody else pay for your license but you.
No, they pay for the roads, the sidewalks, and everything else, Jesse.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I don't believe that you should be able to have a business and discriminate against people and say that you can't come here and eat, or you can't come in my business and purchase things.
I'm glad you made it here in time, because I knew you.
Yeah,
I thought about you this morning.
Well, I just don't think that's right. That's
okay,
all.
so let me, and not that I'm putting you down.
I've been in those situations before.
Okay, so let me ask again. If you got up one morning 50 years ago and you decide, you know what, I'm going to start my own cafe. I'm going to get up, I'm going to work hard, I'm going to put my money into it, I'm not going to ask the government for anything. I'm going to build my own business, but I only want to cater to yellow people. I don't want any reds, any orange, any blacks, any whites, just yellow people. You believe that somebody should come and tell you you don't have a right to do that?
I don't think that.
Whenever they pause like that, I got them.
I mean, if you're going to have a business, I mean, you want a business, you're going to be in a community of where people have businesses and what have you.
Right, but
I mean, to me, it just it's first of all, it doesn't make good business sense to do that.
Well, I said that. I said if somebody would be foolish enough to do that, they should have a right to do it. But when I'm asking you, you would want somebody to tell you you got to have all these other colors to come in.
I think if you want to have your business, you want to have a business and you're going to be licensed by whatever city you're going to be in, then I think you got to abide by the rules.
The licenses are not free.
Well,
and the licenses are so they can take your money and do something else with it. And I'm not talking about that. And so you believe that somebody should be able to tell you that you got to have everybody come in your own private, hard-working, building business self. Now, you're right. It may not make good business sense. I agree with that. But that's your choice.
Well, why don't we just carry it on over in other things as well?
We should.
Why don't we do it with the service station, the swimming pools, and
as
the
long as you built it with your own money.
Say that, hey, only pink people can go over here, only green people can go over here.
No,
I just don't think that's just a good thing.
Because I want to really get into something else real fast here. Let me go back to the point. You believe someone should tell you that you have to let somebody else in with your own private money, private work, private building. You would want somebody to come and tell you, you got to let them in.
I mean, Jesse, that's just my mindset. If I'm going to open the business, I'm opening it to everybody.
No, that's not what I'm asking.
Okay.
I'm asking about the freedom of it. You believe someone should tell somebody come from some...
What are you trying to get from this? I don't...
Oh, you weren't here when we started the conversation, huh? You were not here?
No.
Oh, I have to tell you later then. Black people are always late, and then they want to get in the conversation and argue with you.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm just
no, you're not arguing.
What my feelings
but I'll tell you, because of time, I can't go back right now. And I'm looking at the clock, and it's going about just like that.
Okay.
But I'll tell you later. No, don't be raising your hands. I'm going to let you have the last word on this, because you don't want it? Oh, good. Good. So was the point made, my point made?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, again, I'm not talking about any business that our tax dollars are going into. Is that clear?
Yes.
If we pay for it, anybody that's paying into this should have a right. I'm talking about when you do, it's like your private home. You go out and buy your house, and you don't want Aunt Jenny to come over, and the rest of the family going to get mad at you because you don't want Aunt Jenny there. Now Aunt Jenny trying to come anyway. There's something wrong with that. It's like the water. I get these bills from the water and power, whomever we have to pay it to, and every time I look around, they tell me my water bill went up. And I'm like, I don't want my water bill to keep going up. I bought this house. Don't I have a right for this? And they tell me the trash bill going up, and you just have. And then now they tell you have to have certain things in your own home. You got to have this and that and that. You got to have so many fire alarm things, you know. If I want to get burned up in my house, let me get burned up. I don't want an alarm. If a fire should come, and I don't want an alarm to wake me up, don't I have a right?
But then our tax dollars have to pay for your fire truck.
No, I have insurance. Oh, fire truck. Yeah. That's a good point.
It gets burned up, your fire out. What about that guy?
Insurance take care of it.
Oh,
I want to move. I just want that primary point. I'm only talking about when they built their own business with their own hands and they said no to the blacks. There was no tax dollars from us or anyone else. I think they had a right. I just never understood that. That's all I'm saying. All right. I am Justin Lee Peterson. Thank you for being with me. You can get involved by calling 800-411-2663, 800-411-BOND.